She came into my room at midnight and said, "I can't be alone tonight." Out here at the edge of the Corthan Nebula, the stars looked different. They seemed sharper, more dangerous, as if they were warning travelers to keep moving, to never stop. Hale had seen many stars in his life, but none like these. It was past midnight, the hour when the ship's corridors were empty, and even the engines slowed slightly in their rhythm. The other crew members slept, exhausted from the day's patrols and diplomatic duties. Hale had always preferred these hours. They were quiet, safe, predictable. Then came the knock. At first he thought it was the wind of the ventilation system, or perhaps a minor vibration in the metal hull. But then it came again, soft but deliberate, a tap at his door. Hale sat up, his hand instinctively going to the sidearm beneath his pillow. He had learned a long time ago that in space there were no accidents. Every sound, every shadow could mean something, or someone was wrong. He swung the door open cautiously. The corridor was empty, silent except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. He frowned. Maybe it had been a dream, but before he could close the door, a shadow stepped forward from the dim light at the far end of the hallway. She appeared in the doorway, a slender figure, almost ethereal. Her skin had a subtle, luminous quality, faintly silver, reflecting the faint corridor lights. Her eyes were wide and dark, filled with something that made Hale pause. Not anger, not hostility, but fear. Deep, consuming fear. I can't be alone tonight," she said. Her voice was soft, melodic, but shaky. She glanced around the corridor nervously before looking back at him. "Please." Hale froze. He had met alien envoys before, seen them in tense situations, but never like this. Never so vulnerable. The galaxy had trained humans to expect strong, intimidating creatures from other worlds, ruthless, cunning, unafraid. And yet here was one, standing at his door, admitting she could not face the night alone. He gestured for her to enter, still cautious. "What's happening?" he asked. She hesitated, her eyes darting down the corridor as if something might be following her. Then she stepped inside, closing the door quietly behind her. She did not remove her cloak or armor, though Hale could see faint traces of trembling in her hands. "My name is Leora," she said finally. "I am an envoy from the Solari. We came to negotiate peace, but something has gone wrong. On my world, we do not survive fear alone." Hale raised an eyebrow. He had heard of the Solari, an ancient species with highly sensitive neural structures. Isolation, extreme stress, or emotional trauma could trigger fatal neural collapse. They were considered fragile by most interstellar governments. And yet, despite their delicate nature, they were proud and influential. He sat down on his bunk, motioning for her to do the same. She hesitated but obeyed, perching carefully on the edge of the metal frame. "Tell me what happened," Hale said. His voice was calm, steady. Calmness was contagious, he knew. The Solari, sensitive as they were, would cling to any sense of stability. Leora took a deep breath, as if trying to pull herself together. "We were traveling to the outer sectors to mediate a dispute," she began. "But something came aboard. Something we do not understand. My people, my companions, they are gone." Her voice broke slightly. "I barely escaped." Hale leaned forward. "Gone how?" "The ship's AI failed," she said. "Then the presence appeared. It feeds on fear, it isolates, it traps the mind. If it touches a Solari alone, they do not survive." Hale frowned. "A presence on this ship," Leora nodded slowly. "Yes, and it is still here. That is why I came to you. You are human." She looked at him, eyes searching. "I have heard your kind does not break as easily. I need you tonight. I cannot face this alone." Hale felt a shiver run down his spine. He had faced dangerous creatures before, hostile planets and deadly conditions, but this was different. It was invisible, and yet it hunted like a predator. "Then we will face it together," he said, standing. "But first, tell me everything you know." For the next hour, Leora explained what she could. The entity, as she called it, fed on isolation, despair, and fear. Entire fleets of Solari vessels had fallen to it in the past, disappearing without a trace. It could invade the mind, mimic the voices of loved ones, create hallucinations, and drive a crew to madness. But it had never been seen directly. Hale listened carefully. He had encountered many threats where brute strength or advanced technology was useless. This sounded like one of those threats. But humans had something unique. Humans had endured loneliness, loss, and danger in ways no other species had. Humans had survived against impossible odds. "You think humans are resistant?" Leora asked quietly. "I know humans are resilient," Hale said. "We've survived things your species would consider impossible. Fear is a tool for some, but for us, it's something we can use against them. Calmness, strategy, staying together, it's part of how we survive." Leora looked at him, her relief almost visible. "Then you will stay with me." "Yes," Hale said. "We stay together, that's the first rule." The hours passed slowly. The ship seemed normal, quiet, but Hale knew better. Every creak, every flicker of the lights could signal the presence of the entity. He moved through the ship with Leora, checking compartments, consoles, and airlocks. The AI remained offline. No communications were coming from other ships. They were alone at the edge of hostile space. But even as tension mounted, Hale noticed something remarkable. Leora, despite her fear, began to adapt. She watched him, copied his calm breathing, followed his methodical steps. He explained procedures, reasoning, and even simple human coping strategies, slow steps, measured words, and awareness of surroundings. By the first light of the ship's internal clocks, they reached the central control room. Hale paused. "The entity is here," he said. "And it will test us, but humans are strongest when we are together. We stay awake, alert, and connected. That's how we fight it." Leora nodded, her hands trembling slightly but steadier than before. "I trust you," she said. I cannot do this alone. But maybe together we can survive." Hale allowed himself a small, rare smile. "We don't just survive, we endure, and sometimes we win against odds nobody else could imagine." A soft alarm sounded, almost inaudible but distinct. Hale's heart raced. The entity had made its first move. Leora stiffened beside him. He put a hand on her shoulder. "Stay calm. We are not alone, not tonight, not ever." The night stretched on, filled with tension and anticipation. The entity did not reveal itself directly, but its presence was undeniable. Shadows seemed to shift unnaturally. Hallways felt longer. Sounds echoed in ways that made the mind question reality. But Hale moved with purpose, and Leora mirrored him. Fear, for the first time in hours, felt manageable. And then, just as the ship's internal clocks reached the early hours of the morning, the lights flickered, and a low hum began to grow in intensity. The presence was testing them. And Hale knew something crucial. The night had just begun, but he was ready. Humans had survived impossible nights before. And tonight he would prove to an entire galaxy that humanity's strength was not in weapons or numbers. It was in their courage, resilience, and ability to stand together, even against invisible darkness. Leora's voice broke the silence. I am afraid." "And you should be," Hale said calmly. "But fear is not the end. It's the beginning of something greater. We face it together." As the ship's hum grew louder, Hale and Leora prepared for whatever was coming. The shadows deepened. The silence pressed against their ears. But in that moment, in the heart of the ship, two beings, one human, one Solari, stood united. Not alone, not broken. And that unity, Hale knew, was the first step in survival. The midnight hour had passed. But the true trial, the night of fear, isolation, and survival, was only beginning. And humans, Hale thought with quiet determination, never faced the night alone. The hum of the ship had changed. What was once steady and predictable now felt alive, watching, listening. Hale and Leora moved through the corridors with careful precision. Every shadow seemed to stretch unnaturally, as if something invisible was waiting, just beyond the reach of the lights. The entity is near, Leora whispered, her voice barely above the soft hum of the ventilation system. She clutched the edge of Hale's hand instinctively. Hale nodded. It's testing us, trying to find weakness. That's how it works. It looks for fear, isolation, or distraction. None of that matters if we stay together. Humans are built for endurance. That's our strength. They reached the observation deck, where the vast expanse of the Corthan Nebula stretched before them. Stars glimmered in sharp clusters, but there was no comfort in their beauty tonight. The entity seemed to thrive on the vast emptiness, feeding on the loneliness of space. I don't understand, Leora said quietly, staring out the window. Why humans? Why are you not afraid of it? Hale's gaze remained fixed on the distant stars. Fear is natural. We feel it every day, but humans don't let fear control them. We endure it, face it, and sometimes we turn it into strength. That is why you asked for me, because I am human. The alien envoy's eyes widened. But you are just one person. Hale shook his head. One person can be enough if they know how to stay calm, stay connected. Fear doesn't destroy humans if they have someone to share it with. Leora nodded slowly, absorbing the lesson. She was learning something essential about humans. Their resilience was not about muscles, claws, or technology. It was about connection. Together, humans were more dangerous than any weapon. The lights flickered suddenly. A low, resonant hum filled the observation deck. Leora froze, her body tensing. Hale placed a steady hand on her shoulder. Stay with me, watch me, breathe with me. It can't get us if we remain present, if we remain together. The hum grew louder, echoing through the hull, vibrating in their bones. Shadows seemed to creep along the walls. The entity had made its move. Suddenly, a console blinked erratically, displaying scrambled messages and distorted faces. The AI, long offline, now showed fragments of communication, warnings, panic, and distorted images of crew members. Leora gasped. It's trying to trick us, Hale said calmly. Don't look away, don't panic, it wants to isolate us, that is its strength. Leora nodded. Her breathing became steady, matching Hale's measured rhythm. Together they moved forward, checking each section of the ship. The other crew members had started to stir, their alarms triggered by the entity's subtle manipulations. Panic spread quickly. Hale knew that if the crew gave in to fear, the entity would feed, grow stronger, and possibly destroy them all. But he also knew humans had an advantage no alien species had: adaptability under pressure. He organized the crew into groups, pairing humans with Solari and other species aboard the ship. No one goes alone, he instructed. We stay together. Fear is only dangerous if you face it alone. The groups moved through the ship cautiously. Hallways that had once felt secure now seemed endless, as if the entity was bending the very space around them. Strange sounds echoed, footsteps that were not there, whispers of voices from long ago, glimpses of figures that disappeared when approached. Leora trembled once, but Hale kept his hand on hers. It's trying to scare you, he said softly. Don't give it power. It cannot survive where humans are united. That's our strength. Hours passed. The entity attacked in waves. Crew members reported strange hallucinations. Loved ones calling out, past mistakes replaying in vivid detail, fears magnified beyond reason. Some Solari panicked, falling into despair. But humans held firm, guiding them, speaking calmly, keeping them grounded. Hale realized something remarkable. Humans shared history of struggle, wars, disasters, lost worlds, lost friends, gave them a unique immunity. Their minds were tempered by endurance. Where the entity sought fear, humans offered courage. Where it fed on isolation, humans offered companionship. Leora watched in awe as Hale and the crew moved methodically, guiding panicked Solari through their fears. I did not think this possible, she whispered. Your species, you survive because you refuse to be broken. Hale gave a small, determined smile. We survive because we endure. Fear is temporary. Connection lasts. The first major encounter came near the ship's engine core. The lights flickered violently, plunging the deck into near darkness. The hum of the entity grew deafening. Shadows took form, faint but terrifying, like multiple silhouettes moving independently. Crew members screamed as visions of their worst memories played across their minds. Hale stood at the center of the chaos. "Hold hands, focus, speak," he commanded. Humans and Solari alike grabbed each other, forming a circle. They spoke aloud, not just instructions, but names, memories, words of comfort. The entity recoiled. It had underestimated the human capacity for resilience. Leora clutched Hale's hand tightly. I can feel it weakening." "Good," Hale said. "We are doing exactly what it cannot handle, together." As dawn approached on the ship's internal clocks, the crew managed to push the entity back temporarily. The hallucinations faded. The lights stabilized. For the first time since midnight, there was silence, still, fragile but real. Leora sat down heavily, exhausted but alive. I do not understand fully, but I see now," she said. "Humans, you endure what others cannot even face for a minute." Hale crouched beside her. "It's not magic, it's survival. It's connection, courage, and refusing to give up. That is what makes humans dangerous, not weapons. Not armor, this is who we are." A soft chime came from the communication console. A single line of text appeared: "Warning, presence detected in cargo bay." Hale's expression hardened. The entity was not gone, it had only retreated. It was gathering, observing, testing the limits of human endurance. "Looks like the night isn't over," Hale said, rising to his feet. He extended a hand to Leora. "We continue, together." Leora took his hand without hesitation. "Together," she agreed. The crew reorganized, forming a tight unit. Hale led the way through the ship, moving calmly and deliberately, speaking in soft, steady tones. Every step, every word, every act of connection weakened the entity. It was learning that humans were not prey. It was learning that humans were unlike anything it had encountered before. By the time they reached the cargo bay, the entity made its most aggressive attempt yet. Shadows coalesced into a massive, shifting form, a dark vortex that pulsed with hunger and malice. The air grew thick, making it hard to breathe. Crew members froze in fear. Leora gasped. Hale stepped forward. "It cannot touch us if we stay together. Everyone speak. Names. Memories, anything real." Voices rose in unison. Names of loved ones, recollections of victories, moments of hope. The entity shrieked, its form twisting and bending under the unyielding human presence. It tried to separate them, to isolate individuals, but the humans refused to break. Hale reached Leora's side, holding her steady. "You are not alone, not now, not ever." The entity faltered, then recoiled, dissipating into a flickering shadow that retreated deeper into the ship. The humans had endured its first major assault. Exhausted, the crew regrouped. Leora looked at Hale with profound respect. I underestimated you. Your species is stronger than I imagined." Hale shook his head, smiling faintly. "Not stronger, different. Fear touches all species, but humans, we endure. We survive because we refuse to be broken, and we never face the dark alone." The night was far from over. The entity was still aboard, still hungry, still watching. But Hale had seen its weakness, and the crew had learned something crucial. Connection, courage, and steadfast presence could defeat even the unseen horrors of the universe. Leora exhaled, finally allowing herself to feel a small measure of relief. "Then, we continue. Together." "Together," Hale affirmed. As the ship continued its journey through the Corthan Nebula, the humans and their allies moved as one. Fear had tested them. Isolation had tried to claim them. And yet they had endured. That endurance was the first step toward victory, and it would take everything they had to survive the full night. The entity had underestimated humans. That was its mistake. Humans had survived darkness for millennia, wars, disasters, and endless voids of space. Tonight was no different, and as Hale led the crew onward, Leora understood something profound. Humanity's strength was not in power or technology. It was in their courage, their endurance, and their ability to face the night together. The night was not yet over. But the humans had already proven something remarkable. They could endure anything. The ship was tense. Every corridor, every chamber seemed alive with the entity's presence. Shadows flickered unnaturally, and the air felt thick, pressing against the crew's lungs. Hale moved through the central hub with quiet authority, Leora beside him. She had grown stronger in the last hours, her fear tempered by the calmness and determination of the humans around her. The entity had retreated, but Hale knew it was only preparing for a final strike. Its hunger for fear and isolation had not diminished, it had only grown cleverer, more desperate. This was its last attempt. "Everyone, listen," Hale said to the crew, gathering them in the main corridor. "We know its tricks. It feeds on fear and isolation. We will give it neither. Stay connected, speak, move together, and remember, humans endure. That is our strength, our weapon." Leora looked at him, eyes wide with understanding. "I have never seen anything like this. Your species, you survive because you refuse to be broken." "Not just survive," Hale said. "We endure, and tonight we prove it." The crew formed tight groups, holding hands where possible, pairing humans with other species. Every eye was open, every voice ready. The entity could twist reality, feed on imagination, and prey on individual weaknesses, but it could not overcome unity. A sudden alarm blared. The ship shuddered as if the entity's presence had struck the hull directly. Lights flickered violently. Shadows stretched along the walls and floor, twisting into forms that resembled the crew's worst memories. Fallen friends, destroyed worlds, screams of panic from long-forgotten battles. Some of the alien crew froze, their minds teetering on the brink of collapse. Leora stumbled, but Hale caught her. "Focus. Breathe together," he said firmly. He guided her into the center of a circle of humans and aliens alike. "We speak our truths," he commanded. "We speak what is real. We speak names, memories, hopes, nothing fake, nothing imagined. Reality is our shield." Voices rose through the ship, the combined strength of dozens of species declaring reality, courage, and connection. The shadows convulsed violently. The entity shrieked, a sound that echoed through minds as well as walls. It lashed out, trying to separate the crew, isolating individuals with hallucinations, illusions, and the whispers of their deepest fears. Hale did not flinch. He walked calmly through the chaos, touching shoulders, speaking names, grounding minds. "You are not alone. Not now." "Not ever," Leora mirrored him. For every hallucination, she responded with truth. For every whisper of despair, she replied with courage. Slowly, the entity's power weakened. It could not feed where humans were united. Its influence faltered where voices rose in reality and solidarity. The crew moved methodically through the ship, pushing the entity back from one section to another. Every chamber cleared, every mind steadied, every hand held. These were weapons stronger than lasers or shields. Hale realized that this invisible enemy could be fought only with endurance, connection, and courage, the very qualities humans had refined over millennia. Hours passed. The entity, sensing it could not break the humans, shifted tactics. Shadows began to coalesce in the cargo bay, forming a massive vortex, black and writhing, pulsating with hunger. It had learned the human strategy and sought to overwhelm them in one final attack. Hale knew this would be the decisive moment. "We go together," he said to the crew. "We face it united. That is how we win." The crew entered the cargo bay, hands linked, voices rising in unison. The vortex pulsed and twisted, trying to isolate them, creating illusions of empty corridors, lost companions, and endless voids. But humans did not falter. They spoke names aloud. They described memories of victories, of hope, of moments that defined them. Each word was a hammer against the darkness, each connection a shield. Leora's voice trembled but rang clear. "We endure, we survive. We are not alone." The entity writhed violently. For the first time, it recoiled. Its form flickered, losing cohesion, weakening under the relentless unity of the humans. It lashed out at individuals, but they remained connected. They were stronger than any illusion. Hale stepped to the center of the vortex, his voice rising above the hum and shriek. Humans never face the dark alone. Not ever, the entity screamed, a sound that echoed in minds and walls alike and then began to collapse in on itself. Shadows dissipated. The air lightened. The ship's lights stabilized. The hallucinations vanished. Silence followed, absolute, almost fragile. The crew stared at each other, breathing heavily, sweat on their foreheads, trembling hands still linked. They had survived. Leora dropped to her knees, overwhelmed. Tears ran down her face. I do not understand fully, but I see now. Humans, you endure what others cannot even face for a moment. Hale knelt beside her. It's not magic, it's endurance, connection, courage. That is what makes humans dangerous, not weapons, not shields. Who we are, and tonight you have learned it too, she nodded, wiping her tears. Together, we are stronger than the darkness. The rest of the crew began to cheer softly, relief washing over them. They had faced something no one could see, something no weapon could touch. And yet humanity's greatest traits, unity, courage, resilience, had won the day. As the ship drifted through the Corthan Nebula, Hale gathered the crew. "Remember this night," he said. "The galaxy will test you in ways you cannot imagine, but fear and isolation cannot defeat us. We endure together. That is humanity. That is why we survive." Leora stood beside him, stronger now than when she had entered his room at midnight. "I will tell my people," she said. "They must understand what I have seen. Your species, humans, you endure even when hope seems impossible." Hale smiled faintly. "And they will know, the galaxy will know. Humanity is never alone, and we will show that whenever we are tested." The ship's lights glimmered softly as dawn approached on its internal clocks. The entity had been driven back, weakened, perhaps even defeated for now. But more importantly, a lesson had been learned, not only by the crew but by all who might face impossible odds. Humans survived because they refused to break. They survived because they endured together. And tonight had proven it again. Leora approached Hale one last time. "I came to you because I could not be alone," she said. "Now I understand. Alone is an illusion. With humans, one is never truly alone." Hale nodded. "And neither should anyone else. That is how we endure. That is how we survive, together." The ship's hum returned to its familiar, steady rhythm. The shadows had vanished. The danger had passed, at least for now. The crew stood stronger, bonded by shared fear, shared courage, and shared victory. And as the first light of the nebula illuminated the ship, Hale allowed himself a quiet thought. Humanity had faced the dark and survived. They had endured what no other species could. And they would do so again, always together. The galaxy would learn soon enough. Humans were not fragile. Humans were not weak. Humans were the species that endured no matter the odds, and no darkness, visible or invisible, could ever stand against them when they stood together.